He doesn't notice the effort you pour in, not really. Your warmth, your availability, your constant yes, all of it drifts past him like background noise. He's grown too used to hearing, and yet, paradoxically, the moment you pull back even an inch, something in him flickers awake, as if absence sharpens what presence never could. It's here that the question emerges like a quiet echo in an empty room. Why do some men only recognize your worth when you stop trying to show it? Picture her sitting on the edge of her bed at midnight, phone dimly lit in her hand, scrolling through the last message she sent. Kind, open, patient, and unanswered. She wonders how 3 ordinary words, spoken with calm rather than longing, could shift the gravity of a relationship that has drained her for months. The myths say men chase what they want, but psychology paints a different picture. Scarcity distorts value. Distance heightens attention. And intermittent signs of affection trigger pursuit more reliably than devotion ever does. So the real question is this: what if being chased has nothing to do with becoming more desirable, and everything to do with saying 3 simple words that reset the entire emotional equation? Let's explore those 3 words in this video. We start with illusion. If a man wants you, you'll know. And if he doesn't, you'll feel it. It's a tidy cultural script. And for a moment, it feels comforting, as if attraction were a clean equation that never shifts. But this belief collapses under the weight of lived experience, because countless women have been caught in a confusing middle ground. Men who lean in one day and vanish the next, who share something tender only to turn cold hours later. And the conclusion many women quietly reach is harsh. He isn't pursuing because you're not enough. This section unravels that illusion. Research on uncertainty shows that ambiguous signals don't decrease attraction, they heighten it. People often become more invested when they cannot clearly read another's interest. Yet in dating, this phenomenon hides in plain sight. A late-night text after 2 days of silence feels meaningful, even intimate. Not because of genuine connection, but because unpredictability sharpens emotional attention. The narration here moves like a slow camera pan across familiar scenarios. The man who replies instantly one week and leaves your messages unopened the next. The sweet, revealing conversation that suddenly goes nowhere. The promise of a date, followed by an inexplicable retreat. The tone is empathetic, not accusatory, acknowledging how easy it is to mistake inconsistency for chemistry, to believe that if you could just say the right thing, offer the right softness, or stay endlessly patient, he would finally choose you. But beneath these surface interpretations lies a more complex psychological engine, one that has little to do with your worth, and everything to do with how the mind responds to ambiguity. And that deeper truth is where the story now turns. Deeper psychological root tells there is a moment, quiet, almost anticlimactic, when a woman finally stops, explaining, persuading, or proving. She says 3 words, not as a tactic, but as the truth of her tired nervous system. I need space, or I am done, and something unexpected happens. The man who drifted in and out suddenly feels a jolt, as if a cord he never acknowledged has just been unplugged. This shift isn't magic, it's psychology, emotional reactance. The mind's instinctive pushback when freedom feels threatened wakes up the moment he senses he is no longer the center of someone's emotional orbit. The attachment patterns beneath it run even deeper. For some avoidantly inclined men, closeness triggers a subtle internal alarm, a fear of being needed, consumed, or exposed. They retreat to regain emotional equilibrium, mistaking distance for safety. But when the partner withdraws first, that alarm quiets. What rises instead is pursuit. Because the threat isn't closeness anymore, it's loss. Neuroscience adds another layer: intermittent reinforcement. Attention that comes in unpredictable waves conditions the brain to chase what feels unstable. When she finally closes the loop and stops participating in the cycle, she removes the unpredictability that kept him comfortable and in control. In its place is a stark clarity. She might actually walk away. Human stories mirror this pattern again and again. The man who only texts back when he senses her drifting. The one who opens up only when he feels her tone flatten, her eagerness fade. The one who becomes attentive, not because he suddenly understands her worth, but because the emotional oxygen he relied on has been removed. This section isn't about blame. It's about illumination, understanding why distance awakens pursuit, while closeness, once triggered, retreat. Manifestation in modern life, where the focus shifts to how modern communication intensifies. The push-pull dynamic with unavailable men, often without either person fully realizing it. The emotional purpose is to create discomfort. A recognition that today's technologies amplify the very uncertainty that fuels reactive pursuit. The narration explains how digital platforms operate on variable reward schedules. Delayed replies, disappearing acts, sporadic liking of posts, or sudden bursts of attention mimic the same intermittent reinforcement that drives compulsive behavior. These micro-interactions make emotional distance feel more dramatic and emotional closeness feel more fragile, creating a cycle in which an unavailable man responds most strongly only when his access feels threatened. Examples explore everyday scenarios. A man who watches your stories but doesn't reply to your messages. Someone who resurfaces just when you stop initiating. A man who becomes attentive only after seeing you active but not engaging with him directly. The script highlights how these cues, online status indicators, read receipts, selective engagement act as emotional levers, triggering him to chase when he senses you're withdrawing but disengaging the moment he feels. Secure again. The tone remains observational and slightly documentary, showing how algorithms, timing, and digital ambiguity all conspire to keep women stuck in a loop of waiting, hoping, and analyzing. This section closes by preparing the viewer for a shift. If technology amplifies emotional inconsistency, then the power to break the pattern must come from a psychological realignment, rather than a strategic performance, setting the stage for the healing path ahead. Real change begins when those three words stop functioning as a tactic and start reflecting a genuine internal shift. The emotional purpose here is to show that power in relationships doesn't come from outmaneuvering someone else, but from reclaiming the part of yourself that once believed you had to earn attention. The narration explains that phrases like "I'm stepping back," "I'm choosing me," or "I'm unavailable" only recalibrate a dynamic when they arise from clarity, not covert hope. When spoken without emotional desperation, they interrupt the pattern of overfunctioning that many women fall into, the cycle of explaining, chasing, or proving their value to someone who invests only intermittently. This section gives practical, grounded examples, feeling the familiar urge to send one more text, and instead pausing to breathe, recognizing the physical tension that appears when a man withdraws, and learning not to soothe it by pursuing, noticing when a partner's inconsistency triggers old attachment wounds rather than genuine desire. The narration highlights that the most magnetic change isn't anger or coldness, but neutrality, the state in which someone else's availability, no longer determines your emotional temperature. The tone remains compassionate as it reframes the chase altogether. A healthy partner doesn't need to be jolted into pursuing, he responds, because there is emotional room for connection, not anxiety. By choosing people who show up consistently and stepping back from those who don't, the viewer begins to feel what genuine mutuality actually tastes like. The section closes with a simple truth. When you stop chasing, you stop distorting your own worth. And from that grounded place, the only men who move toward, you are the ones capable of staying. These three words work because they signal emotional detachment, not punishment, boundary setting, not a game, a closed reinforcement loop, which often triggers reactance in avoidant or inconsistent partners. He doesn't turn around because you mastered a tactic, or because you finally found the perfect sequence of words. He turns because something in the emotional equation shifted the energy that once clung, now releases. And in that release, you become visible in a way need never allowed. The silence that used to feel like rejection becomes a boundary, a quiet declaration that your heart is no longer on standby. The 3 words were never really about him. They were the moment you stopped negotiating your own value, the moment the pattern broke, and in that break, the dynamic that kept you waiting, hoping, performing, shrinking, loses its power. Picture it. A half-open door behind you. No longer an invitation, no longer a test. You're walking away because you finally understand that being chosen should never require self-abandonment. And as you step forward, something softens, not in him, but in you. The paradox settles. The moment you stop needing someone is often the moment they finally see you. But that clarity isn't meant to lure them back. It's meant to bring you home. Because the only love worth having is the kind that meets you without being chased.